Everybody, happy Resurrection Sunday. For those of you that don't know me already, I'm Chuck Duggan, and I'm just going to take this time to tell you a story about what happened to me, kind of a testimony. March 7th, I came home from work late. It was a Thursday, and I came home from work late, and I had a little bit of a headache, just right here, and I thought it was a sinus headache, and I ended up going and making myself some dinner, and I went to bed. I didn't think anything of the headache. I woke up about an hour later with the worst headache that I've ever had in my whole life. It was just terrible. I mean, I've never had a migraine before. I thought that's what it was, but it was like a brain freeze that just wouldn't go away. And I didn't want to wake up Mandy because she had a big day the next day with work and everything, and so I just suffered in silence, basically. All I could do was just get into the fetal position and rock back and forth, and I would hold my head like this and just say, God, I need you. That's all I could say was, God, I need you. Jesus, I need you to just heal me, please, God. And that is all that I could do the whole night. I didn't sleep at all that whole night. The pain was bad enough that I got very nauseous, and around 2 a.m. I ended up throwing up violently, and this continued on, the same thing, just rocking back and forth, holding my head and crying out to God. And right around 6 a.m. I woke up again and had to throw up, and it was terrible. I threw up very violently and loud enough that it woke up Mandy. And so she came, and she came in and saw me like that and was like, what's going on? And so I told her that I have a terrible headache. I think it's a migraine. I don't know. And so later on she asked me if I wanted her to stay home. And I told her, it's just a migraine. You need to just go to work. So later on, probably around 9 a.m. On March the 8th, I ended up having where I called my mom probably around 9 a.m. and told her, hey, this is what's going on. It's terrible. It's like a brain freeze that just won't go away. And so she ended up telling me to get dressed. And so we decided to go down to the urgent care down by Onslow Memorial. And so we went there. Of course, when I walked in, they could see that I was holding my head and everything. And they asked me if I've ever had a migraine before. I told them no. And so they told me, you need to go immediately to the ER. Because it could be something else. It could be a brain bleed or something else. So I went over there at about a little bit afterwards, probably about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I went to the ER, and they ended up doing a CT scan, and I remember waiting around a little bit in a room, and the doc comes in, and he looks at me, and he says, just matter of fact, with my mom sitting there, he goes, well, your scan comes back, and you have a brain tumor in your head. So I found out at that moment that I had a brain tumor in my head, and my mom, I remember looking over and seeing my mom just clutch her chest and fall to the floor, and just, terrible news for her. And at that moment, I felt absolute peace come over me. And it was kind of like I just was able to think logically, and because I had this peace come over me, that, okay, well, I understand that I have a brain tumor, and that's why my head hurts so bad. And I felt comforted in that moment. And I actually comforted my mom. She crawled over to me and hugged me and said, I'm sorry. And I just held her head and said, it's okay. I'm going to be okay. We're going to figure it out. And I had no fear at all in that moment of when I was told, hey, you got a brain tumor, So I really can't explain what the peace felt like, except for that I had no worry at all. And so at that moment, the doc says, you're going to have, he asked if I had any vision loss. I said maybe just a little bit. At that point, I had just a little bit of vision blurriness down at my peripheral. And so I told him that, and he says, well, look, we're going to put you, I've got connected to Duke University. These people specialize in it, so they were going to send me to Duke in order to have the tumor removed. He didn't tell me what kind of tumor it was or any of the specifics. He just said, you have a brain tumor, and you got to go to Duke to take care of this thing. So they sent me home. It was that Friday, and said, you're going to have an appointment for Duke on the following Monday. And they gave me some Percocets and some OxyContin. And so I went home and ended up taking that. That really didn't help the pain. Like every hour or so, I would wake up, maybe hour and a half, around there, 2 hours. I would wake up and I would call out to Mandy, and I would say, hey, you need to help me and give me the medicine. So she gave me the medicine, but it would work for about maybe an hour and a half, is what I'm trying to say. So at that point, the next morning, after waking up every hour in the hour or so, at about 6 a.m., I woke up, and my right eye, I could see nothing. It was absolutely black. So I was blind in my right eye, and in my left eye, I could see maybe just a little bit up at the top, and then in the middle, it was pixelated. So I'm pretty much blind completely at that point. I could see just a little bit. And so she comes in the room, and I told her, I can't see you at all. And again, at that moment, when I realize I'm blind, I can't see, I feel this peace come over me. This absolute, just like a cloak, like somebody laid a blanket on me that just covered me entirely, and I felt absolute peace. And it was like I was being told inside my heart that I'm going to be okay. And I had no worry. And so she calls the doctor. My wife calls the doctor. And the doc says, hey, bring him down right now. So we got in the car. We went down to the hospital. And then they proceeded to arrange for an ambulance. They couldn't medevac me, I guess, for the weather or whatever, like by helicopter. So they got me an ambulance. My mom and dad are there. Pastor shows up. Family shows up. Friends, a couple of friends, just to visit me. At that point, they put me on Ativan and morphine. So I'm on Ativan and morphine, and I start to just fall asleep. I remember waking up in the ambulance at one point, and I thought it was nighttime, but it was really day because I was blind. And so I fall back asleep, and then the next thing I know, I'm in an MRI. I found out later it was an MRI that I was in, and so I wake up, and I can't see, I'm blind, and I hear all these, like, it sounds like a bunch of monkeys banging on a trash can. If you ever had an MRI, it's terrible. So I hear all these noises, and I feel like, oh, I need to struggle. Of course, I'm on the Ativan and the morphine together, and I'm inside an MRI, and I'm blind, and so I think, oh, I got to get out of here. This is terrible. I got to get out of whatever this is. And so I felt in that moment, like, again, the peace come over me, and there was like there was a voice inside me that says, hey, remember they said you had a tumor. You need to just chill out and let them do the tests because they're trying to help you. So I calmed down. I relaxed again. And then right after that, I remember waking up to kisses on both my cheeks. My mom, I could hear my mom's voice, and I could hear Mandy's voice. They were kissing me and telling me they love me, and they were wheeling me in. They were wheeling me in to go to surgery. And so there's people, I can hear the people all around me wheeling me in, you know, kind of like you see on the movies. And I could see a little bit of this person right here, and it was the head surgeon that was going to do the surgery. He told me, he introduced himself, and he says, you know, who he is. He introduced himself, said, hey, I'm about to put you under. I'm about to, and I looked down at my arm, and I could see just a little bit up here at the top, and I could see that they were going to put me under. And at that moment, again, peace just came over me, and I said, Jesus, if I'm going to die right now, I know that I'm going to be with you. And I had this peace again. It just quieted me. I mean, this whole thing happened so fast over the course of a couple days, and it was just a whirlwind. And in those moments of just absolute devastation that somebody would go through and just feel absolute like worry and just peril and devastation, I had peace. I had peace because the one that lives inside me, I took the little bit of faith that I had, and it really wasn't, he just comforted me. I felt like in that moment, like when I was holding my head and rocking back and forth and crying, I'm telling you, I cried. He answered that prayer. He wants that kind of a prayer from you, if you're listening. He wants a prayer of just raw, primal, this is me talking to you, kind of prayer. And I felt like a kid that scraped his knee, and God picked me up. He picked me up and said, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. That's how I felt when I had this, like, the cloak, like I was telling you, of peace just come over me. I felt like a little kid in his dad's arms, that I felt secure, safe. And that's really where I was at that point. So they go and do the surgery. I don't remember anything that happened in the surgery, obviously. And so I end up waking up, and I remember them doing the test. There was a girl there, and she was doing like, do you see, how many do you see? You see 3, 2, 4 kind of thing on both eyes. They would cover one eye and they would do that. And so it turns out I could see. All right. Now, one thing I left out is just before they wheeled me in, they were telling both my parents and my wife that I would probably be blind for the rest of my life. And so that's what was being briefed to my parents and my wife, that I'm probably going to be blind. Because what had happened to me, and we found out afterwards, is that the tumor, I had a pituitary tumor. So right in the center of my head, on my pituitary gland, I had what's called an adenoma. And this tumor, at this time, when all this whole event happened, it began to have where it was rapidly bleeding everywhere. It was like basically being broken up and bleeding everywhere. It's hemorrhaging. So I had a massive brain bleed inside where the part of my head where the pituitary gland is. So I have this tumor that's growing rapidly because of the blood that's being just, pushed out because of the eradication of the tumor. All right, so that was pushing on my optic nerve and caused me to go blind. Okay, I guess it's called acute. Anyways, so that's what happened. And so, anyways, I go home. I can see now. And after the surgery, we go home, and I go to a follow-up on the 28th of March. So some weeks later. And we go to an ophthalmology appointment, Mandy and I. And we go there, and I'm there for 4 hours. I'm there from 1:30 to 5:30. And so during this time, they're doing test after test after test after test. And so at the end of the testing, I get brought in, my wife and I get brought in to the first examination room that we were in. And inside this examination room, there's 3 ophthalmologists. And so the head ophthalmologist, they're all smiling. Well, by the way, the 3 ophthalmologists are smiling. So that's a clue. But the head ophthalmologist asks me, he goes, hey, tell me your story, So I tell him the story, just like I just told you now. And I end up having where at the end he says, well, let me tell you something. And he smiles and he says, I have never in my career seen somebody that had acute apoplexy of a pituitary tumor that went blind and have the results that you have. He said, in the eye that I was completely blind, my right eye, I have 20/15 vision. I have 20/15 vision. I have better than perfect vision in the eye that I was completely blind in. Okay? And in the eye that I was like 95% blind in, I have 20/20. So I just want to let you know, like, I'm telling you, they said they have no way of explaining it. The doctor said, we don't know. We've never seen this before. It's very, very rare is what they said. And we don't have any way of explaining it. And so I just want to tell you this. I'm telling you this story because there's many people that are probably going to be listening to this or watching this. Yeah, and you're going through all sorts of things that I have no idea. Only God knows. Only God knows what you're going through. And no matter what it is, you have to, in that moment, give it over to Him. I was helpless. I had no other option but to rely on the one that I know created all things, that lives inside me, that He's my Father. He's my Father. And like I said, I felt like a little kid that just, I scuffed my knee and He's picking me up, and I absolutely had no care or worry in those moments of that normally you would think that would be like absolute, just, earth-shattering, what is going on in my life? Why me, oh God, kind of thing. But I didn't say that. I didn't feel that. And it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about who I am. I'm not some giant of faith. I really am not. You give Him this much faith, a mustard seed, right? That much faith, and He will turn it into, he's the force multiplier. He'll multiply it enough and use it to where He'll take this mountain and He'll cast it into the sea. And it's a real thing. He's a real God. It's a real thing that He will do for you. If you're going through something and you're listening to this, I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is that you're going through. It's not bigger than Him. So, thank you for watching this video. Sorry about the chickens and all the noises of the forest and everything. I couldn't think of a better place to do the video, but God bless you all, and I love you. Jesus died for you on the cross. And if you accept that, if you accept the sacrifice, that God came down in the form of a man, was born to a virgin, lived a perfect life, taught people the truth, and then died on a cross as a substitute for all of us because we have sinned and we are fallen. We are in a fallen world. If you accept it, you have access to this God, this one true God, and He will move the world for you. He will move the world for you. He will do anything for you because you're His kid, you're His child, and He loves you, and I love you. And I just want you to keep that in mind this Easter Sunday. Love you all. Goodbye.